What's happening, Andy? Here I am joined today by Andre Durbano of Riso. How are you, Andre?
Well, how are you, Andy?
I am awesome. What's happening? I see the hat behind you there, looking good. That's an old one.
Yeah, I put it there to see. I wonder if he's going to catch it. And you never miss an opportunity to spot your paraphernalia.
Well, I never miss it, especially when it's you have a very empty background and the hat stands out there. So I always greatly appreciate that. That's the best.
Good.
Uh, let's before we jump in, maybe some new people join in the industry, starting to watch these videos. Let's give us a recap. Tell us who Riso is, Riso, and what do you guys do?
Hey, you know what? In all the interviews we've done, I don't think we ever talked about Riso and its origins. But I mean, the company's been in the U.S. since '87, been around about 50 years. But it's a technology, and we have to talk about the duplicator. We rarely talk about the duplicator, you and I, but it's the duplicator that put us on the map. It's kind of an offshoot of the offset technology. It prints static information, right? Like the same image over and over and over. And we gravitated from there because of personalization and variable data and the digital revolution in the early 2000s. Riso gravitated away from that duplicator and into a technology that is capable of variable and personalization, and that is Inkjet. And so that's how we migrated to Inkjet. Today we have both. Inkjet is our bread and butter. The duplicator is sold in large part to schools who have them and love them, and they're going on year 12 with the product. They know that they can buy a duplicator one time and probably have to go through 3 buying cycles with the copier before they even have to replace the duplicator. So they love that they can spend $3,000-4,000 on a school-sized duplicator that's going to last forever, doesn't break down. But there's another part to that duplicator story that I think you were connected with as well recently.
I was. Are we talking about so the last time I saw you guys was well, not you specifically, but Keith. Keith Partridge. Not that Keith Partridge, but the more popular Riso Keith Partridge
I'm sure equally
coordinated
as
a
popular as Keith Partridge. Yeah, of course,
yeah,
nobody's gonna if they're under 30, nobody knows what we're talking about.
nobody does, but probably a lot of people watching this do know who the Partridge family was, and Keith actually, so to step back, I have a buddy, fraternity brother from the University of Maryland, go Terps, and he is an artist, and he emailed me, called me out of the blue one day, and hadn't talked to him in a while, and started asking me about Riso printers, and he was learning about. He'd seen all these videos online about this art movement where these students in New York, and actually it started in Japan, were using Riso printers, duplicators, right? And for single color printing and then layering colors. And now it's this entire program. He wound up, and Keith set this up. It was the coolest thing. You guys brought us to, we came out to the lab, the Riso labs. And then is it part of NYU? What school is it? It's part of the New York.
It's the Riso Lab at the Visual School of Arts in New York City.
Yes, yes, and we had a wonderful tour by the facilitator there, a world-renowned artist in his own right in Riso printing, and the whole lab was just filled with prints from these students, just the creativity and layers and colors, and it was just so cool, and it was such a treat. But my buddy has been still doing this, and actually it's funny we're talking about this now because I did cue this up and I'll share it out. So he's this is something he just posted, and I'll mute this here, but he's got a Capital Art book fair. He's printing up his flyers, not just using it for the art that he thought he was going to buy it for, but very proud of this. He can't stop talking about it. I get more of these updates from him from every little thing he's printing, and every time he gets a new color. And so coming up, Phil Houtney is doing a show in DC. I'll put information in our feed for that. Anyone in the DC area that wants to come and check that out, it's going to be pretty interesting. But this is not something that I just stumbled into. This is a big program, a big movement. So this isn't what the call is about today. But before we get into everything else, why don't you tell us a little bit about just sort of this weird subculture of Riso printing?
Yeah, we should do it some service here, because you're right. We rarely talk about it. For anybody watching, if you were to Google risography, you will enter a world of young people, right? It's a community of graphic artists that have turned risography into its own entity. And really what they do is, as you mentioned, they will layer an image. So they'll print a yellow version of an image, and then, you know, take those 100 or 200 copies, run them back through the unit, only this time layer a blue, the same image but blue on top of it. And when you mix blue and yellow, now you get a green hue, and then they maybe add a slight red tinge to that, and now you've got a pink. Oh yeah, that's all the work. And so this school that you mentioned, I believe that's Keith. That's Keith
Yep.
Partridge. This is the Riso Lab. There are students who pay course fees to learn how to use Riso and to be able to create their own artwork on the Riso device. There's our Riso in the corner. And I cannot tell you, if you are a dealer out there watching this, every arts department in America and Canada, whether it's university, college, or even, you know, some of the bigger high schools, all the art departments are into this. It is again, a throwback to the offset, and it's their way to teach what printing was with the offset and the work they do there. It's spectacular stuff. And the shows, like your friend is having an event in Washington. There's a massive event in New York City that actually, it's coming up on April 1st, I think. It's called Mocha Fest at the Javits Center. I mean, there's thousands of kids that go there. They're all about the zines, the magazines, and not just Riso products, but all sorts of other art-related items. And for years, we kind of didn't pay attention to it, and now it's just exploded.
It's so cool because, you know, what it reminded me when I initially saw all those pieces was, you know, those sort of, you know, those playbills from the 60s and 70s where one or two colors and, you know, just a concert or wrestling match or sporting event. But just really, they're very similar to those types. And it is because it's that offset look. But what's really cool about it is these kids are using digital technology to create that offset, you know, to print that offset look. So they're laying out with digital, but then they bring it home in more of an offset manner with, you know, a duplicator that's printing almost exactly the way that it did when I used to sell another brand that used to make duplicators. I think they're out of it, and, you know, congrats, you beat those guys. But you know, it's been around for a long time, and so just the coolest of cool things, and a neat conversation to have with any university. And I'll share the link to that article and those photos in the description.
Well, and again, to the dealer community, it's interesting. This is not our growth business, but to the dealer community, selling this Riso technology to arts department, we are the only game in town. We are the only product of its kind that will do this. So it's a unique, well, you talk about a niche of a niche. It's very unique for you. It's not a competitive field. Now, some of the younger artists, you know, they're buying their duplicators online. They just don't have the money to spend. But the schools, the art departments,
and they need
supplies. They're buying
the
new ones.
They need supplies. I mean, you guys had 5 Risos in there, but they're buying a ton of supplies. I think you gave them those machines to help get them started, if I remember correctly, which was very cool. So let's shift gears a little bit, because I don't want to, you know, spend all the entire time talking about that. We've got some great things to discuss here today, but I wanted to see how your year went last year. You know, I know a lot of companies had really bad years. A couple companies skated a little easier than others. Where did you guys fit in? How was your supply chain situation?
Well, so what was interesting is, you know, this is it, right? This is March. It's the white flag final lap. And last February, we got our budget from Japan, and it was all good. And then on April 1st, as the new year started, we were told, oh, by the way, you're only going to have half the product line, microchip shortage. So we're not going to have the smaller inkjet devices, at the time, our FT line. And we're not going to have the smaller duplicators that the schools love to use.
Yeah.
So on the duplicator front, we ended up just focusing on the bigger duplicators. And it worked out nicely because, you know, our big duplicator is about $30,000. Our school duplicator is about $3,000-4,000. And frankly, the one $30,000 duplicator is more profitable than selling 10 duplicators to schools at ridiculously low margins. So the focus shifted there. And it was kind of the same thing on the inkjet side, where we said, well, okay, we don't have the small duplicator or the small inkjet device for the schools or churches or some of the nonprofits that we typically sell to. We're going to have to focus on production in large part, focus on our GL series and our Valasys device. These are the flagship units for our print market. And we're typically a 55-45. We sell 55% high-end, 45% kind of FT devices, more on the lower end. This past year, we're hovering at about 70-30. It's 70% production devices and 30% everything else. And so the story of this year for us was we sold less boxes, way more profitable though. We were just way more profitable because of the size of the equipment we sold, who we sold it to. I mean, we're selling devices to print shops, and print shops, when on the GL device, like a GL 9730, that has an average monthly volume of the units we have out there, an average monthly volume of 430,000 copies per month, which means, we have some accounts on one machine alone are doing 900,000 copies a month. And some of these accounts have 4, 5, 6 Risos in there. So, the volume, the ink that is purchased in volume like that is crucial to us. And it's crucial to the dealers that sell Risos into those markets. That supply business is phenomenal. And, some dealers use the Riso product as a moat to protect their base of toner devices, because they are at risk of being wiped out by some of the larger inkjet devices. And some dealers just use our technology just to crack open new doors, some competitive accounts that they've never been able to get into. And now they get in there with our high end is $100,000 more or less, the GL. Our Valasys is about 250, but the GL is.
So the Valasys, let me just stop you. The Valasys, 320 pages a minute, if I remember correctly. Yes.
320 impressions per minute. So it's 160 sheets of paper duplexed simultaneously. And therein lies your 320 impressions. That is production speed.
Oh, yeah. That's faster than a lot of production printers.
Yeah. And, when you look at even the Xerox and Canon high-end devices that hover around $1 million, that's their speed. Okay. Now they do a lot more. If you're going to pay $1 million, you're going to get much higher duty cycles, improve copy quality and all that. But for our space, what we do, the print shops rave about the productivity. And then, as is the case with any inkjet device, you mentioned the green part of this, very little electrical consumption. It's one machine uses the power of a blow dryer. And so when you eliminate heat from a technology, imagine eliminating heat from a car. Imagine how much longer your car would last. So you eliminate heat from the printing process, you eliminate diffusing, okay? You're not sucking the moisture out of the paper. So that flat output is music for any print organization that is involved with the mailing business. That's why Pitney Bowes sells our product, and they do very well year over year. It is their printer of choice. When they sell a Pitney Bowes inserter folder type device, that flat paper just works so much better when inserting and folding. But no emissions. You walk into a Riso based print shop and you don't get the big ventilation systems. Even our own print shop in Woburn in Massachusetts, I mean, we have like 8 Risos in that print shop. There's no ventilation, there's no fans, right? There's no heat.
Well, you're not spitting ozone out. I mean, that's one of the main advantages, right? It's not just that it's inkjet, which is just inherently more environmentally friendly than laser technology, right? But there's two kinds of inkjet. And there's the heat process inkjet, and then there's the cold process. And you're on the cold process side, which you did mention. And so if I understand that correctly, that's one of the reasons you're not using the energy, right? So while the other ones that use heat are still more efficient than laser, they're not as efficient as the cold process. And then the heads last forever, right? Because the heat eventually could blow the heads. And that's where those print heads eventually have problems is the heat process. You're putting so much heat and pressure in them that, you know, sometimes that's where a failure can occur. My understanding from tours of Japan is that, you know, this cold process allows for just almost indefinite use of these heads without any issues with reliability.
So let me say this, Andy, you've come a long way in your inkjet knowledge. Okay. I remember when I used to have to explain this from A to Z to you. You've come a long way. The heat is not so much the issue. The big difference between the inkjet technology is water-based ink versus oil-based.
Okay.
Every inkjet technology out there today is water-based except for one, Riso. We are the only oil-based. So the difference is when you use water-based, when you're going to saturate a sheet of paper with water, you better dry it.
Yeah, it soaks
before
in.
it comes out. And that's where that heat that you mentioned comes in. Those devices require, if it's water-based ink, they require a dryer, they require a decurler. That makes the device itself a lot bigger. That's why some of these devices are 25, 30 feet. Okay. We're oil-based. And so using an oil-based ink, we don't ruin the integrity of the fibers of the paper. So it comes out instant dry. The paper's flat. We don't need a decurler. We don't need a dryer. And so the device itself is less expensive. That's why we are the least expensive production cut sheet inkjet device on the market. And an oil-based ink versus water means a smaller footprint. Because we don't have those added accessories, on a standalone basis, our printer is 5.5 feet. 5.5 feet, and you're printing 9,600 impressions an hour. Actually, 99. The GL is 165 pages a minute. That's 9,900 impressions an hour. Fully loaded, you put a 4,000 sheet paper deck, a stacker on the back end. It's 8.5 feet. The Valasys, which is a twin engine unit, is 16.5 feet. I can't tell you how many RFPs we've won based on footprint alone. One account in San Antonio purchased 2 Valasys, and we were up against some of the bigger names, and forget price. We were at 16.5 feet for the Valasys. The closest device, I believe, was the Kyocera device that was at 23.5 feet, right? So we're like 7, 8 feet smaller than the Kyocera. When you get into Xerox and Canon, you're up to 30 feet, okay? So you need the space. And so big advantage on using this oil-based technology for Riso. Again, we are the only ones. We gain on price, we gain on footprint. So it's a wonderful story.
So you mentioned, you know, so far we talked about schools are buying them, right? You just mentioned print shops. You know, who are the inkjet customers today for the Riso products, and you know, where do you see this going? Is the acceptance growing? Is it still the same crew? Have they always been accepting in these markets that you're hitting now? How is it? What are you seeing out there?
So just yesterday, I was talking to our dealer in Utah, and he said we have this one account. They're printing 350,000 a month, most of which is spot color. And he said our salesperson tried to go in there with toner, forgetting that we have Riso in the lineup. And the price that we were going to have to sell that color toner device, we were going to lose our shirts. He said we put the Riso in there pretty much at full price on the capital expense side. And he said we didn't have to discount the ink all that much. And our customers printing for about a penny a page, spot color. Okay. And he said, you guys saved our butts. What he is talking about is the gap. Okay. With the offset press having been pushed to the side or eliminated altogether, when you walk into a print shop today, you get monochrome toner on one side, color toner on the other, and this great big gap in between. That gap is those customers that want to take that black and white and add just a little bit of color to it, but in doing so have to go from 1 cent to, well, the print shop, right, has to go from 1 cent to a cost of 4 or 5 cents. The end user has to go from a cost of a selling price of 3 cents, 4 cents for black to 10 to 12, 15 cents for color. That's like 3-4 times the price just because we wanted some spot color. Oh gosh, it's 2023. We'll stick with black and white because color printing is a luxury. You know, Ferrari's a luxury, right? An apartment off the coast of Greece is a luxury. color printing ain't a luxury. Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a technology today called Inkjet that bridges that gap. And so for those salespeople who understand that gap, actually, Nate Robinson at Impact once said to me, there's mystery or there's margin or there's mystery in the gap, and where there's mystery, there's margin.
There's mystery, there's margin. I've heard that before. That's
right.
that's
So if you can
that's our industry in a nutshell.
Yes, yes. Yeah, otherwise, if you're just selling boxes, yeah, you're not going to be in the industry very long. So that's the gap. And for salespeople who understand the gap and can sell into the gap, they're doing really well subsidizing their copier sales with the occasional Riso sale. Some really solid commissions in that. But as far as who's buying it is those print shops that need to fill the gap. Most of them, it used to be some 4 or 5 years ago, many of them did not know there was a gap. They figured, well, it is what it is. Today, they've all come to understand all these events that are happening, right? Like Canon alone has this huge event called the Think Conference in August or September.
Yep.
They invite their biggest and best customers. Next month, we are at the granddaddy of all inkjet events, the Inkjet Summit. That's put on by the Printing Impressions people, NAPCO. And we've been there since day one. This is year 11 for that event. And again, some of the biggest and best print shops in America, and it's invitation only. This show is not an open forum for any, just anybody who wants to attend. You have to be invited to this event. So all the major toner manufacturers that have inkjet, they're represented. Riso is there, and the print shops that attend are all there to fill that gap. You got school districts that are investing $1 million, right, in some of these big units just so they can access color at a penny a page. And so a lot of school districts who attend who don't have the volume or don't have the money to justify that kind of investment come to us and say, well, we need to start somewhere. And so you guys are it. What do you have? And so for $100,000, they're actually, for a low of $50,000, they can get in the game. But typically, they'll get a fully loaded GD 9730 with a fiery. It's about $110,000. That's it. They're in the game.
Wow. So Inkjet Summit is coming up. You just mentioned that. Where else are you going to be? How are you reaching dealers? How are you reaching end users? What's on the horizon for 2023?
So as far as reaching dealers, I know BTA just had a big event. There's a BTA conference coming up this summer. And that's dealer oriented, right? And it's in Boston.
Yep.
Right. That event in August. That's where we are. That's where Riso is located. So if you come down, and frankly, for any dealer who attends, just stop by our office. We'll make sure you get a free clam chowder out of it at least.
At least. Oh, I'll be there then.
You can't come to New England and not enjoy the clam chowder. So
you're gonna be at that.
We will be at that event.
Awesome.
Okay. That's about half hour from our office, but on the grand scale, as far as customer-facing events, we certainly have this Inkjet Summit coming up. We have the IPMA, which is the Implant Managers Association. I think that's in June. I don't know, Andy, how many Canadians watch this, your forum here.
All 5 of them.
But you have a lot of them?
I said all 5 of them.
Okay. But
yeah, we do have a good amount of Canadians watching it. We're obviously balanced towards more US, but I'm right on the border of Canada. So, we do have Canada is in our top 5 for traffic. So
I'm going to be up your way because in May, we've got Graphics Canada, which is back after 4 years. It's been missing. So Canadians are looking forward to that.
Where's that?
That is it's in Toronto. It's in the suburb of Mississauga, right off the
airport. Yes, everything's in Mississauga.
And of course.
Yeah. A lot of the OEMs are out there, and then is it Brantley, something like that? Brantford, yes.
Or Brampton.
Yes. So yeah, been up there many times. So you're going to go to a show up that way. That's excellent.
So we've got that event. And then, of course, Printing United, which was so successful for us last year. You know what's interesting with these events, right? Given the price point of our technology, we sell equipment on the floor of those events. And so we put together promos. Last year at Printing United, we signed about 100 deals, okay? Now, keep in mind, 5% of our business is direct.
Yeah.
And that means, those customers that insist on doing business with the manufacturer, that's what our, small major account team is for. 95% of our business is dealer resellers. So whatever we sell on the floor of those shows are going back to the dealer community. Okay. So there is that. So of the 100 orders that we signed at Printing United, we ended up delivering about half. Because you sign at the show, but then you've got to go through credit checks and all that stuff. And some customers decide, I made a mistake. It was an impulse buy.
I got excited.
Yeah, I got excited. I'm going to hold off. So, and that's fine. That's part of the game. We signed about 100. We delivered half, and that's fantastic. So that was, great, profitable show for us. We put out a lot of units from that show. So we're gearing up for that event. That's in October. So those are some of the key events coming up. These shows are huge. They're huge for our industry. It was 1978 when a German engineer said we are headed for a paperless society. 1978, right? 45 years ago. And frankly, it's only now that we're really starting to see a push towards that. And of course, the pandemic kind of created that environment. The supply chain issues forced print shops. The print shops are having trouble getting paper, buying envelopes. And so their customers were forced to look inward and create a more of an online, getting transactional invoices and statements to their customers using email. So it really is now that you're going to start to see more of an impact of that paperless society. Still a long ways to go. I think you and I will be retired from this industry.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it happen anytime soon. You've been to a doctor's office lately, or have you signed a mortgage lately? I mean, even as much as they've digitized so much of those processes, it's still so paper heavy. And thank goodness, because this is our world. But we are coming up to the end of it. I do want to, before we wrap up, let's take a minute and maybe, discuss just real briefly the, you mentioned the dealers. So, out of those 50 machines, a whole bunch of those went out to dealers. You said 10% of your products that you sell are being sold direct. So 90% of what you sell is through dealers. So what's the dealer pitch? What are they getting out of it? How does it fit into what they sell? Most of the dealers are pretty stuck on laser. Where does this fit in? You're such a niche product, and just so what's the elevator pitch to dealers, and what's the benefit to bring in someone working with this?
So understand, if you're a dealer, understand one thing: the print community, the production community, is talking about inkjet. They have been. Okay, every major manufacturer today is offering inkjet to these people. So it's a hot topic of conversation for the print shop. How do we get our black and white toner, which is not very profitable? That's a giveaway service. How do we convert the bulk of that volume to color inkjet? Because we're, as a print shop, they're doubling and tripling their profits when they sell color inkjet versus black and white. So if you are a dealer, if you are a salesperson, and you are not involved in this discussion, you're letting a huge opportunity slip through your fingers, because your competition is involved in that discussion. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, it's such a unique, refreshing story. We're talking about a technology that's 165 pages a minute. You talked about the Valysis at 320 impressions per minute. Imagine picking up the phone and saying to your customer, I know you're in with my competitors for your 3 years into a 5-year lease, but I've got something totally different for you, something unique. And if nothing else, you should know about it. Okay, just want to take a few minutes of your time to introduce you to this technology. It is a door opener. So for any salesperson out there, for any dealer that is out there, you should know that this is that door opener that really helps you get into those accounts. Some dealers use the technology as a moat, as I said, to protect their fleet of products. It is such a unique product line that you cannot, if you're a dealer and you don't have an inkjet strategy, okay, you've got Epson today that can provide you with a strategy. You've got Kyocera that provides you with a strategy. You've got some of these bigger devices. And of course, Riso is that name that everybody recognizes in our space, okay? There are so many products out there. As a dealer, you absolutely need a solid inkjet strategy, because your customers are talking about it. Just because you're not, don't think they're not, okay? They are. And if you bring it up, you would be surprised to see them say to you, I didn't realize you guys offered inkjet as well.
That is a perfect way to end this, I think. Probably should have had that conversation at the beginning, but
No,
maybe
we
we'll
needed to
just.
talk about the duplicator. It needed to
Well, we
be
had to
done.
talk about the university and all that, and there's some great pieces of this. I think I'll wind up probably chopping this up a little bit, maybe doing some shorts because that was perfect right there. And if you're a dealer and you're just looking for some way to differentiate and maybe a way to hit some new markets that your current products aren't letting you play in, this is out there. It's beloved by universities, by religious organizations, right? So it's been around forever. It's tried and true, and it's reliable, and most importantly, dealers are making a ton of money on it. The one thing that jumped out at me when we were chatting was the volumes you were saying. Every machine you talked about was 300, 500, 800,000 pages a month. And man, think about the pages a month you're doing on these little machines, and if you can just get a couple of those, one or two of those a month, just the volume that you're doing and the aftermarket and there's not a lot of places that are going to get Riso supplies, right? Like you can't shop that, so they're locked in.
Every now and then I see that Rizzo slip into your language.
I try not to. I have some bad habits.
Riso.
I'm getting better at it. Riso. So anyway, this has been absolutely great. Thank you so much, Andre, for taking the time with us today. And we're on a Friday, so you have yourself a great weekend.
Clam chowder this summer. See you in August.
I will have some, and I'll be there. See you then.
Okay.